Alright, I think that's good enough close enough for government. I had to set up my new recording environment because this is Audacity and I am not using, I already wasn't using OBS, but now I'm using Secure Blue, which I already told you about in my last video. Secure Blue is okay, I kind of like it. It's decent, it works. My stuff mostly just works for the most part. It's fine, it works, how about that? I'm glad that I used Bazite for like a few months, because even though they say it's not even remotely the same, the concepts remain the same. Not like the gamer aspect, but stuff like, having to use Homebrew for terminal applications, Flatpak for GUI applications, RPM OS tree for drivers, that kind of thing. So, I'm still gonna say that Bazite was a helpful experience for me. They can debate me all they want on it, I don't care. But we're gonna talk a bit today about the Steam machine, because the Steam machine just came out. And it's cool. It's a cool little machine. I don't need one. I don't want one. I don't need one. I'm definitely not spending $1,000 on one. I didn't even get a Steam Deck, but whatever. Reason I don't want one is I already have a Linux desktop, which is upgradable. It's really nice. It's a really nice desktop, except the front panel I/O doesn't work. But who really cares? That stuff's always really unstable anyways. But the Steam machine, it runs, you can, because it's basically a PC, you can probably load whatever on it, including Windows if you're, into that. Especially if you're like a gamer, I guess. But SteamOS, you've heard my opinions on SteamOS. They have changed slightly, because I'm a bit more lenient now. So I actually don't mind SteamOS as an intro to Linux, because it is still a Linux distribution and it is gaming focused, which I guess is people's primary concern these days. It was definitely a reason I couldn't daily drive Linux for a while. I had to dual boot until Proton became really good, so thank you, Valve, for that. But as much as I deride, SteamOS as being like, oh, this is probably a good noob-friendly distro, I think I was thinking about it wrong, where I thought that something like Linux Mint, maybe if it had a Wayland, I don't know, I'm kind of concerned about their Wayland release. It'll probably be ready. Most likely it will be ready when they say it's ready, so I'm going to trust that they don't jump the gun like fucking System 76 or Ubuntu or whatever. I'm expecting that Cinnamon Wayland will be fine when it comes out for the people that can actually use Wayland, and then for legacy systems you'll have to switch to Mate or something, I don't know. Unless they support Cinnamon X11, that's probably what's going to happen anyways. So, but SteamOS, basically, that I want to say Immutable Arch Linux, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a while since I actually looked into SteamOS, but if I remember, it's Arch-based, but they roll a lot slower than Arch, and they use an immutable system, so if you install packages over it, they will be erased on update, unless you use containers, of course. So that's where I really liked Atomic distros, again, Bazite, Secure Blue, and that's because out of the box, they come with a bunch of really nice tools. I think I've talked about this before, but Bazite is actually really nice in that I was able to get every single program I needed, and I have some weird fucking programs I need to run, but Bazite let me do, I used Homebrew for some things. I had to use RPM OS tree for drivers and VPN clients and stuff. I had to use Flatpak for GUI applications, and then I had to use DistroBox for like an app image that wouldn't run on Fedora for some reason. I think they fixed that since then. But that was for like my 3D printer slicer. And so once you figured out everything, once you like relearned how Linux works, it wasn't really that bad. It's not like just installing a native package for everything or whatever, like your repository packages, which you can kind of, you can debate on if that's a good thing or not. But SteamOS, I don't remember having... Why are there bugs in my room? What the fuck? Anyways, SteamOS was... It was... So, it's immutable, but it's not atomic, so it is very difficult to layer packages over SteamOS. I don't know if it's impossible, but it makes it a lot more painful. Do I really care for a new user that's really just using this thing to play video games? Like, maybe. But, like, they can also just install anything else if they decide that they need that functionality. So, the Steam machine itself isn't at fault. I would say that SteamOS is kind of at fault for that. And I feel like it sort of creates this mystique that Valve is magic, you know? And that they can outdo what Canonical and Red Hat couldn't do for just making like a general purpose Linux distribution. I think that's what they were going for, because Valve actually announced that with SteamOS 3.8, contrary to what I thought, they do say that they kind of announced something that already happened though, which was that they were going to allow you to build your own Steam machines out of DIY parts, and as long as you have an AMD GPU for now, until they support NVIDIA, I guess, or Intel Arc or something. Which is fine, whatever, you know, like have limited hardware support, keep to your, because those I always had with SteamOS as a product operating system. It's not so much a general purpose Linux distribution. I do stand by that. I still don't think it's good general purpose Linux distribution. I don't think that matters anymore though, because like I do actually listen to what gamers say, you know, I do understand where they're coming from. I don't necessarily agree with it because I think that their positions are generally not great, but wanting to use Linux and just wanting something that just works and not having to worry about anything else is about as valid a use case as any, so I can't fault them for not really giving a fuck about what they can install and can't install on their own computer. I mean, unless they switch distributions, which again isn't that hard to do, but it does require... Because, like, remember, the problem with switching to Linux in the first place is, I always say that it's that there's no easily available hardware. Basically, if you want a Linux computer, you're going to have to either go to a boutique shop, order it custom from an OEM, or buy it on eBay. For the most part, that's kind of how you get a Linux computer, is you have to get one from somebody that specializes in Linux computers, basically. So, like, the Steam machine being from a mainstream company using a Linux distribution is a much lower barrier to entry, but it's also like $1,000, so I don't really know, you know? I don't know how well it's going to work out for them. I'm sure it's going to sell out immediately and scalpers are going to be all over that shit, but I wonder if it'll be a good gaming machine for, like, I mean, it'll do gaming, right? You know, like we've talked about Proton and how it can play all the cool games and you don't need Windows anymore for gaming. That's all fine and dandy. But your operating system, so like Linus Tech Tip said, people will eventually need to do something else besides play video games with their computer. So Proton isn't the end all be all. You will need to have access to things like productivity software. For me, recording software, this is all available as Flatpak though, so it shouldn't be an issue. I've pretty much gotten by with Flatpak, and I think I need one homebrew application for Java. I don't know if I'm going to use Java though. I may need it for something, but I'm going to pretend that Java doesn't exist right now, even though it's hardened and memory safe. But basically, like, that's where my stance has changed a bit. Is I'm like, okay, whatever, you can run SteamOS for your Linux distribution. I don't really care, as long as you are basically as long as you're not using Windows at this point. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, and not using a Mac OS or something, like, whatever. If you need a Steam machine to be happy, just use a Steam machine. I don't care anymore. It's not important. It's not... this is all a surrogate activity. We need to go into the woods and live like wolves. That's basically where we're at right now. And, yeah, you know, like, it is a valid use case. Like, I just need my gaming computer to do gaming computer shit. I don't care how it does it. I don't care what it does, as long as I can run my fucking video games. It's great for that. It'll probably be, like, the most stable Linux distribution you've ever used, unless, again, you're using, like, an atomic distribution. So, and you can always switch anytime. But that was my second point I was going to make, was lack of hardware, but also for some reason, despite PC gamers having experience installing Windows, because not only do they have to run debullet scripts, but also they have to like write a Windows USB and boot into it and install Windows. These are the people that can use Linux, but for some reason, you tell anybody that you need to load up a USB with an ISO on it, and they like flip shit. You know, they're like, "Oh my god, man, this is too hard." It's like having to edit your fucking FS tab. You know, like, which by the way, there needs to be a better solution for that. I know there's GUI solutions like KDE and GNOME have one, but like, there needs to be a standard solution for editing your FS tab with a GUI. Like, it's ridiculous that I have to know my FS tab. Not just when I'm using Gentoo, but like just normal fucking operating systems, you know? Like, I still had to figure out FS tab, and I still don't know what the fuck any of those digits mean. I don't know what 0077 means, and I never will, and I don't want to know, and I will Google it anytime I need to know what it means. Okay? But basically, like, the Steam Machine provides the hardware as well as the stable, noob-friendly distribution. So it is exactly what I wanted. So I really can't complain, you know? Like, I shouldn't be complaining about it, and I don't regret complaining about it earlier, because I still think that the notion is kind of misguided, that you need SteamOS to run Linux on your gaming computer. I don't think that's the right attitude. I don't think it's the right solution. But like I said, I don't care. It's all meaningless in fucking time and space and whatever, you know? Like, it means nothing what distribution people use. Valve is just doing good work, so who gives a fuck, you know? But that's kind of where we're at. Now, but like I said, I still don't want one, just because I already have, I got like, not only do I have one Linux computer, I got like fucking 5 of them. Not all of them are gaming computers, though. In fact, I think only one is. Yeah, I got a lot of weird computers. Don't ask me about my computers. I will show them to you. You've seen some of that on. I'm kind of sad that I make that stuff YouTube exclusive, but it's not educational enough to put on TIL vids. So this is going on TIL vids, obviously, because this is a discussion about technology. But basically, like, do we? It's hard to make like a full judgment on this hardware, because yeah, $1,000 isn't really all that much compared to what Linux machines cost these days. I mean, like, buying a Linux laptop is gonna also run you like $1,000. Shit, that Starlight tablet I got, it's also $1,000 now. When Mariah got it, it was like fucking $600. Like, geez, everything's expensive right now. That's why I got into retro computers, because people give them to me for free or for very, very cheap, and I can have all my PC building fun without spending a fortune. I highly recommend that. Again, I always say this, but go to your local hobby club, talk to the boomers, they will give you free shit. Go to fucking VCF, Southeast, Southwest, go to whatever convention, buy vintage computers, have fun. It actually does really make computing fun again, in a way that modern computing just isn't fun anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know why, but like, just using Windows 95 for like just basic DOS gaming on real hardware, it's been like way more fun than emulating it, you know. And I've got like the cool like Space Invaders keyboard. I've got the CRT to go with it. I've got the tower. It makes its tower noises. It's got the spinning Rust hard drive that's probably gonna die at any moment. Compact flash, you know, it's super cool. It's like my favorite computer. And you just, like, no matter what I do to my desktop, I've got like 10 drives in it. I've got the massive graphics card. I've got everything I want in it. My dream computer is built, you know? Like, it's not, I mean, like, obviously I could go way higher, but for the most part, this does what I needed to do, you know? And I just don't have as much fun. That's why I don't want a Steam Machine, because, like, it's cool. It's a modern computer that can't be upgraded. Like, cool, whoop-de-doo. And it runs Linux, so cool, my computer runs Linux. You know, so, I don't know, you know. Like I said, it's a valid use case to just want a Linux computer that works. It does bring you closer to freedom than you were otherwise, even though you are still using a proprietary vendor-locked platform. Who cares? You can install GOG on it, you can ignore Steam all you want, who gives a fuck? Yeah. Unless you use the Steam controller, then get fucked. But you know what's cool about the Steam fucking machine? Yeah, the Steam machine is you can use an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller or whatever. And that's something that people are comparing the price to like $700 for a PS5 Pro or something with slightly less performance. But you got to remember that the games are usually a lot cheaper still. The ecosystem is free. You can install whatever operating system you want on it. You don't have to jailbreak it. You can run emulators. There's a huge library that PS5 will never have. So there's valid reasons to want a PC. Now whether or not you're going to spend $1,000 on a Steam machine, that's another question. And I would still say that the best option is still running normal Linux distribution on much cheaper hardware. Like, I know that $1,000 doesn't get you much these days in PC land, but, like, check eBay. Yeah, you'll find something. You can find PC hardware for a reasonable price. It's not completely the end of the world yet. Although, again, if you're not American, get fucked. Like, just go die or something, whatever it is you people do. Because, yeah, you're probably screwed. Maybe Europeans a bit less so. Anyways, yeah, it's Steam Machine. It's coming out. And SteamOS is coming out for AMD graphics cards, which was kind of already a thing. But you can build your own Steam Machine if you don't want to, or if you want to use Valve's OS for some reason, and you want to build a machine specifically for that. That's a thing you can do now. I still have no interest in it. I won't use it. I just don't need it. It's not something that I'm in the market for right now. I've got tons of fucking consoles now. Despite my lack of gaming these days, I have a lot of fucking gaming hardware. I'm gonna be like the coolest uncle ever, jeez. But, yeah, it's just like, if I wanted to be like the most objective as possible and just be like, like this is the most neutral, unbiased opinion I can have is this is probably good work. Because it does address two issues that I had, and the Steam Deck addressed these as well, was giving people hardware with Linux on it. That was the main first hurdle. And giving people a stable gaming-focused Linux distribution without... brand recognition, I don't like that term. I don't like why that's a thing. I get why it's a thing. I understand it has to be a thing. It's a necessary evil. Fuck it, I don't like it. But whatever. Brand recognition, that is a major aspect of SteamOS. Is everybody knows Valve, nobody knows who the fuck IBM is. Like, you should know who IBM is, but you don't. You should know who Canonical is, but you don't. And that's just because you're not, tuned into the server realm, honestly. Because this is the thing, right, is, I always say this, but gamers aren't actually all that tech literate. The PC master race in general will claim that they have a lot of ability to tinker, but the second you mention an operating system where you can tinker, they're like, oh, just use Windows, it just works, all my games just work. All my games just work on Windows, so I'm just going to use Windows. I was like, cool, okay. So, and I'd like to reiterate that that's kind of what PC Master Race always stood for. When you got down to their actual core values, it was, and this is why I was kind of ashamed at, PC gaming discords or whatever, was they would unironically recommend like a PS5 over a PC. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, it has, it's way cheaper, and it plays the latest games at high settings. It is like, yeah, but what if you want to do anything else with it? Like, you're gonna have to jailbreak it. What if you want to run emulators? What if you want to, run Microsoft Word on it or something? I don't know. Whatever it is you people do with your game consoles. And that was never a thing for them because they don't see freedom anymore. All they see is price. And PC gaming was, it was somewhat about price, about having cheaper games and having, honestly, sometimes, better hardware for the price. That was always being able to make a budget build, that was always a big thing for PC. It's not really an argument anymore now that consoles have just gotten so cheap. I mean, I know that they say that they keep price hacking it, but just check eBay, go to your local marketplace or pawn shop or something, they'll sell you a PS5 for $400. But the Steam machine, I do hope it sells well. Like, I don't necessarily, I don't want SteamOS to be people's stopping point, though. I want people to get interested in the ecosystem. I want them to kind of experience what I do. That's really what this channel is about, is I want you to feel what I feel when I mess around with Linux. Like, I want you to be excited for it like I am. And I know that that's an unrealistic expectation for people to be excited in their operating system, but it's, Linux is really, like, that's why this became my hobby. That's why I even started this channel, is because no matter what problems I had with Linux, like as a community or as with developers or whatever, with decisions that they make, I always adored how the software was really kind of liberating, and that was why I said I do value freedom over, over security in some cases, where I do want, I want to be free to fuck around with my operating system the way I want to. You'd think I wouldn't running Secure Blue, but I have other computers where I tinker around with them and all that, and it's fun. It really puts the joy back in computing in a way that Windows has just lost over the years, Because that's really where I cut my teeth, was modifying Windows and stuff, and then I was like, well, hey, now that I'm using Linux, wow, look at all this stuff I can modify. Look at all the freedom it gives me to make my computer my own and do whatever I want with it, and I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. SteamOS is kind of a departure from that. It is a lockdown, basically, like, immutable Arch-based desktop that plays video games. And I never felt like that was really in the spirit of why I got into Linux in the first place, but I understand that that's just not, it's not why people use an operating system, it's not the reality, it's not, I would like it to be, I would like for people to get interested. I want them to learn things. That's, again, why I made this channel, is just to help people learn, or at least just listen to my rants about technology or something. But I feel like if SteamOS becomes your start and your stopping point, where have you really gone except away from Windows, Like, what'd you really gain? And if we were to put that into a list or something, like, yeah, you get the freedom of Linux for the most part. You don't get quite the customization of a more liberated distribution, like a non-immutable one. But you do, like, you still get the freedom of Linux. You're running open source software for the most part, except Steam, obviously. But I don't know, I feel like you should desire more from your computer. I feel like your computer is kind of an extension of yourself, at least when you get into this hobby. I'm sure that, I don't know honestly what PC gamers would say about that, but I do think that a computer personalized to you is something that personally, I think it will always be a thing. I know that there's a lot of doom posting saying that, like, now that PC building is dying, it'll mean that the personal computer is going to go away and you're just going to run a thin client that downloads Windows every time you start up your computer. But I don't think that's the case. I think that computers in general will always be there will be an open platform for you to mess around and really make your computer your own. And again, I think that SteamOS is kind of doesn't quite get you there. It gets you part of the way there, but then you have to make the next step. And I want to eliminate as many steps as possible, and that's why I like it when people start off with Kubuntu or Linux Mint or something, and they start distro hopping and they start learning about the other distros, and they get into the community and they have a good time and they learn a lot. SteamOS isn't really meant to do that. It's meant to, you turn it on, you plug in your controller, and you play your video games, Like, cool. You have a game console that runs Linux. I have an R36S that runs Linux too. Guess what it does? It plays video games, Like, yeah, it's not interesting to me. It's not an interesting machine, but it does solve a lot of problems that I had with getting people into the space. And I do hope that some of them transfer and are like, hey, well, now that I use Linux, what am I hearing about all these cool distributions? That why can't I run stock Arch on, or like vanilla Arch on another computer or something? And then they'll try something else. But I don't know if the Steam Deck really got people into that either. I don't know about the conversion rates on that. So, well done. You have a Linux computer. The market is open. You can now buy a desktop with Linux on it from Valve. That's exactly what you wanted. That's exactly what you got. Enjoy. But, I do hope that there'll be, like, some interest in something else, But whatever. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Bye.